So our topic for this edition of Meaningful Life is flow. And what do we mean by flow? The term flow originates from the research of a Hungarian psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And the notion of flow is that there are moments in all of our lives that are really peak experiences when we're performing a task and it's almost like something takes over and we're performing at a high level, but we've lost self-consciousness. We're not thinking, oh, I should be doing this better, I should not be, but there's just this momentum that's carrying us forward. And we know from research that having more of those flow states in your daily life is a big load on having a more meaningful life and a more happy life. And a lot of the research in psychology and in sport, we've studied a lot of tennis players because tennis players do experience flow. And also a lot of the other studies were the Bulls, when they were in their heyday, they would get into a state of flow. So I wanted to talk with my coaches, again, we've had them as guests for a few weeks now, about the state of flow and what is your understanding of the state of flow in sport, and how can ordinary club players cultivate flow in their game, and what are the lessons there that could apply to help us all create more flow in our daily lives?
Well, flow to me is you're playing tennis and you're not even thinking. And you're making the right moves on the court, you're hitting shots, they feel great, you're making good decisions, and you are not even aware of what is ahead of you and what is happening behind you. You're not aware of the outside influences. You are completely 100% engaged in what you are doing at that moment. So that's what flow is to me. And I've experienced flow plenty of times. And if I may add, flow can be disrupted. Flow can be disrupted certainly by your opponent, but more times than not for me, flow can be disrupted by myself. And what I will do at times is get myself out of flow by becoming too aware of what is going on. And I'll start to think about, hey, this guy's good. I'm beating him. I just won the first set. I'm up 3-1 in the second set. I'm winning this match. I shouldn't be winning this match. There goes flow.
Yeah,
you know?
there it goes, yeah.
You know? So the key is to try to stay in that moment. And it's, anybody can be victim to losing flow. We all can gain flow, I believe, but anybody can be victim to losing it. So I know your question would be, how do you get it back? How do you stop that from happening for an extended period of time? So one thing would be is to focus on, I said it before, small tasks. Focus on the very next task at hand. If somebody is serving to me, then if my goal is to win this next point, and I think the best shot at it is returning it to their backhand corner, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to look at that backhand corner, that part of their side of the court, and that's all I'm going to focus on, is getting the ball there. So now that brings me back to being in the moment and takes me away from, what if I lose now because I have this lead, This can't be happening. So to me, that's what flow is to me, and that is a way of getting it back if it gets broken, because it will get broken. It will get broken, so we need tools to get it back.
Well, and I think just to highlight a couple of the big lessons out of what you've said is, if you are wondering if you're in flow, you're not in flow.
Right, that's right. It's a very unconscious thing, right? It's unconscious.
It is, and
right.
that's where, as a positive psychologist, when I teach it, people are like, okay, well, so is this, like mystical? And I'm like, no, but there are steps you can take to be flow ready. And so that's about lifestyle and preparation. And I'll leave the shame.
That's what I was going to mention. Working alongside Mark for 9 years now, I always pay attention to what he's doing on the court whenever I can.
As do I.
Yeah, thank you. So disciplined, and he always does his due diligence, always goal-oriented. And I'll see him working with players, and there's a specific goal in mind. And you can almost lose yourself in that goal, and that's the more repetitive that you can find yourself in that flow state, which you induce with those drills. I think the more regular you are there in that state, the easier it becomes when you're out there in a match situation. I mean, for me, one of the tools I use, and there's so many different tools you can use to get there. I love music, and like he said, I'm not jumping ahead in the song. I'm not living in the past of the song. I'm simply enjoying the music as it comes along, and that's where I try and find my best tennis or my best life. You know, I can put my best face forward, so to speak, through just being very present with practice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, music has a great way of going right into the emotional brain, the reptilian brain.
Yeah.
We call it, which is, you know, what can come out on the tennis court for some of us. For goodness. But when we think about it, cognition is way overrated in general in terms of a meaningful life. And I don't mean that flippantly, but thinking about things is overrated, and we have a society that's flooded with information. It's a cognitive overload, and I think being flow ready, we need to step out of some of the overload that's particularly prominent in our era in particular as well. Anything else about flow? Very interesting topic. We're continuing to learn about it in psychology every day.
yeah, it's how to tap into it. I think, you know, we used a couple of tools, and there's, you know, all those tools that we can use. Inevitably, you can't stay there.
Right.
So, you know, how do you find it again? How do you continue to find it, and then, you know, be within that envelope? And then, like we said, as soon as you become aware of it, it's gone again. So, I think if we just keep revisiting the different tools that you've offered, breath, and maybe trying to feel your hands or feel your feet, the letting go, maybe you can find yourself in that envelope of flow and be more of a conduit of the energy that's coming through, rather than trying to force it. Just let it flow through you. So,
I mean, he's right in that flow is not a constant thing. It's going to come and go. And all students, from our perspective, because we're coaches, have to be aware of that. And, you know, he and I have had to deal with student slumps, right? I mean, you have a student who says, okay, my slump is now 2 months long. And will I ever pull out of this? And we'll say, have you ever had a hot streak for a couple months? He said, absolutely. I had a hot streak for 5 or 6 months one time. I said, you're going to have to take the good with the bad. And know that when the good is good, it's not going to last, unfortunately. And when the bad is bad, that's also not going to last. So, you know, we always preach, make sure you don't get too high, you don't get too low. You got to stay even keel as possible and just take it all in. So, you know, flow is something that we can hopefully hit at the right times, because I know that's what the pros try to do. But besides that, we have to understand that we can't control our desire to be on top of it all the time. We want to have flow all the time. It's just not going to happen.
It reminds me of, I was just reading an excerpt from one of my favorite books a couple of days ago, The Inner Game of Tennis, which was a cult phenom Timothy Galway when it first came out. But I think that balance between paying attention to our external world and our internal world, and continually cultivating, you know, we in Western society spend so much time cultivating externally, what's our car, what's our house, blah, blah, blah. But we don't spend as much time as the Eastern world spends thinking about cultivating our inner life. And I think as tennis players and as professionals, if we want to have a meaningful life, the big picture on flow is paying attention to that inner game, that inner life. If we want to have more of those peak experiences, that's something that's a discipline. And as you guys both know, once we break it into a discipline, that's when I like it, because I know how to do that. But I think that's true for all of us, because when we think about what we can control, it's our consistent actions that we take every day. And we know that consistent actions create patterns of thought and patterns of feeling. And we can really revolutionize our tennis game and our life with that kind of thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.